Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads with my partner and co-host, Mr. Sean Francis. I am Brian Altunian, and today's conversation is all about being the sensational you, but in a little bit different way. Sometimes just the fact of putting on our clothing and getting dressed in the morning, it's something that we don't even think about. But for our children who have sensory processing issues, sometimes that's a very difficult thing to do. And luckily, there's a resource now where you can go and get access to clothing and material to help your child who's dealing with some sensory issues. So we're excited about today's conversation. So stay tuned for another episode of Just Two Dads. Before we jump into today's conversation, we thank everybody for joining us. We also were dealing with some sad news. And Sean, I'm gonna let you kick that off and have that conversation, and then.
Yes, as many of you know, those of you that follow us, you know that Brian and I met working in financial services, and one of the greatest things, greatest experiences about doing that was, being able to meet just amazing and wonderful people. And one of the more amazing people that we met was our friend Ebony Thompson. Ebony was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer probably about 5 years ago, and battled through it and lived life and documented her journey. And as we began to have the purpose of the show expanded and realize that it's not just about special needs. You're talking about medically complex situations, people that just get through the battles and presentations that they have in life. We came to realize that Ebony was a perfect person to have on the show as a guest. And she was on here, and she was actually as a guest on here with us in the middle of a chemo session, which just completely blew us away. And this was back in February. And we learned that she passed away this morning, unfortunately. And just want to make sure that we send our heartfelt condolences to her family, to her children, and she's just, a reminder that, we should make sure that we make the most out of this life that we have. And that we can't be worriers and warriors at the same time. We always say that, but even in the face of things that are, worth worrying about. And for those of you that are actually seeing the show versus hearing it, you just saw what was my attempt to put a fantastic picture of her up on the screen, but I wasn't successful at that. But the sentiment is more important than the picture itself. And I just want to say to her, wherever she is, if she can hear me, just rest in peace, and thank you so very much for the example that you were and are.
Yeah, and I had a chance to speak with a couple of people in her circle this morning, and there is a sense of relief that the 5-year fight is over, and the amazing sense of blessing. That's a good word. That she portrayed and she gave to everybody that encountered her. She was not giving up. She was always looking great, always fighting a fight, always inspiring others. She created a foundation. She wrote a book. She was on a path to make sure that her battle was, something that she could, forge ahead and be, and really be a representative for others and a voice for others, and stand in sisterhood. She was also incredibly devout in her faith. And so for those that knew her and loved her and were close to her, knew that actually she's in the place where she always wanted to be. She's in her ultimate destination, her home, and blessing all of us. So there she is. There's Ebony. So to her family and friends and everybody out there who was impacted by her, we get a chance to say, we love you, Ebony, and thank you for being a part of our lives. And that's a beautiful picture, by the way. And for anybody fighting a fight, breast cancer awareness is we celebrate it once a month, but it's a 365-day a year issue. And so, please make sure that you go and get early detection, and, and know that there are medical solutions out there for many. So get out there and get the help. And men, get your prostate checked out too. So
yeah, and that's the last thing. One thing I was going to say just before we move on is the one thing I didn't know until she came on the show. Like I said, she was diagnosed 5 years ago. She was on the show in February. So you're talking about a 4-year process, essentially 5, is that she was grossly misdiagnosed. And so her example also highlights how much misdiagnosis takes place amongst women in communities of color. If you want to go back to look at the episode where she joined us, we'll make sure that we repost it, even though it's up at the website and everything and on all our platforms. But remember, doctors are just people. They have degrees. Some of them have more experience than others, but they're just people. You're the advocate for yourself and your health. And just remember that. We love you, Ebony.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Julia, thank you for indulging and allowing us to share that. We don't do that very often. So this was a special person for us. So thank you for letting us be a part of that. So we're going to jump into today's episode. If you're catching us live on Facebook, please leave a comment. If you want to hit us up with an email, we are just2dads@gmail.com. Send us your notes. Any people that you think we should be talking to. We are excited about today's conversation because Julia is one of those folks, that we found out on social media doing amazing things for our community. And if you're hearing us on any of the podcast outlets, or on WSTX AM radio down in the U.S. Virgin Islands, thanks for making us part of your listening day. You could also, our new website is just2dadspodcast.com. So make sure to check us out, see some of our past episodes, including our episode with Ebony. And I think that's it. Oh yeah, let's talk about Billy Footwear. So let's start us off a little bit, Julia. We're going to get into this, I promise you. Billy Footwear, thanks for always supporting our podcast and being a good friend. Billy Footwear does adaptive footwear, actually, for people of all ages and people with all issues and people that have no issues, just people that want to have an easier way of putting on their shoes. And Billy's story, Billy Price, the founder of the company, his story is an amazing story too. So check him out at billyfootwear.com. I think that's it for now. We'll finish up all the thank yous. Sean Hall, thanks for everything that you do out there in Hawaii on our behalf. And then we'll do all the other thank yous at the end of the show. So, and
then just to know, our link for Billy Footwear will be in the show notes. If you use that link to make your purchase, you get 10% off your final price. And that is especially advantageous when they happen to have sales.
There you go. So beautiful. All right.
Yes.
We got finished with all the business, upfront business. Sean, introduce Julia and some of her background and let people know who she is. And then we're going to get into this conversation. I'm excited to hear about this today.
Yeah. Our guest today is Julia DeNey. Julia is somebody, one of those people who, by way of their choice, unless I'm missing something, unless I know otherwise, she raised her hand and said, I'm going to be a member of this community by serving it. For those of us that become a member of the special needs community by circumstance, whether it's a child's diagnosis, our own, or a family member, that's one thing. But for someone to jump up and say, I'm going to become a member of that community and serve them, that is especially appreciated. Julia is the founder of Sense-ational You, and we're going to talk about, the spelling of that. It's a company that has clothing that is, just as we talked about Billy Footwear, having footwear that is for people that have issues putting shoes on. Sense-ational You is created for those that have sensory issues and challenges with certain clothing and fabrics, which I can relate to because while our son Elijah doesn't have as much of a problem with that, when he was younger, that was a real issue and you had to have specific clothing. And so, Julia, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
And number two, you probably don't see yourself as a hero. If you've taken a look at any of the other shows, our guests are heroes, and not all heroes wear capes, but every hero has an origin story, which is where their powers come from. So how does someone with your background tell us what that is, get into and arrive at the point where you're going to create a company that provides such a fantastic and well-needed service?
Yeah, so I majored in fashion design. So that's my background, is in the actual designing and producing of clothing. And during my time at Cornell, I started volunteering with a local autism preschool and resource center. And they brought up a lot of the clothing challenges to me because of my background in fashion. So it really all began as an independent study that I took on to help provide resources to the families at that school and center. And I came to learn that there were not a lot of resources to share with them in terms of clothing, and began a few years of working with them to create different prototypes, work with their therapists on ways to integrate in other sensory tools to help enhance regulation and not just make comfortable clothing. And it all really grew from there. I started working in special education and then began designing clothes that fit a wide variety of needs that could work for a larger group of kids and my students.
Wow. How long has the company been
Is there
around?
a reason?
Go ahead. Sorry.
We launched in April of 2022. I began the study in college in 2018, I believe. So a while.
And so the study at Cornell, was it around adaptive clothing, or is that
Yeah,
what you
exactly.
studied?
Yep.
And so then
It was around
then you
adaptive
interned?
clothing.
Got it.
Yep. So I began the study. First, it was just a research paper on kind of the industry and on the sensory needs and seeing what resources were out there. And then from there, it grew into a study of adaptive fashion and in what ways we could change apparel or add tools into it to make them sensory tools at the same time.
But I got to go back. So why? I mean, if you're doing a study on fashion, you're going to write a paper. Of the myriad things that you can actually look into, you
most people would not take
out
that route. Yeah,
adaptive. Yeah, what inspired that? Like, where did that come from? Because that's
Yeah.
for us, we deal with it on a daily basis. But for those who don't have a child or don't have a family member, like, where does that come from? That inspiration.
Yeah, I think I always wanted to do something impactful with fashion. I think going into fashion school, I knew I wasn't really into the runways, but I loved the effect that fashion had on our daily lives and kind of its influence on society. So I think baseline, I always entered into fashion in a way of wanting to do good and wanting to do good with it and have some sort of impact. The reason I went down the adaptive road was really getting close with the families and the staff members at this preschool. I was there a lot, especially leading up to the study. I was building that partnership and met a lot of the students, got to be in the classrooms, got to see what they were talking about, speak with parents about their experiences and their struggles that their children were facing, and really just wanted to help. It really started simple as just I wanted to pull resources together for them because they were so busy and didn't know where to turn. And when I realized there weren't resources, and the more I grew into the research and saw how widespread the problem was, just the more I kind of became just so intrigued at how this could be solved and why no one else was solving it. And from there it grew, because working with my students, I saw firsthand the struggle that they faced and built that relationship with them and wanted to create a solution for them.
Amazing.
Wow.
And do you have family members that are in the special needs community? Do you have that element of it?
Yeah, I don't have any family specifically, though. We all now talk about, especially now, all the time I've spent in the autism community, how we're pretty sure my dad's autistic and slipped through the cracks somewhere along there. But specifically, no, that's not where it grew from. It didn't grow from any specific family members at the time.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying initially. Tell us a little bit about where you're from geographically, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and everything, how you were raised and everything, because all those things obviously play the role in who we become. You're muted, Julia.
For some reason there. You got muted there.
How did that happen?
I don't know. There you are. You're back.
Now? Okay, perfect. Okay, so I grew up in a small town in Connecticut that's the suburbs of New York City. So a big commuter town, but otherwise a very small town with not a lot going on. But my mom volunteered a lot, so I did a lot of community service with her, which is, I think, reflecting back on, probably played a part in me wanting to always work and do something that had a more positive impact than negative. And yeah, I grew up with an older sister and a younger brother, so I'm the epitome of a middle child.
Me too. Love it. Yeah. Always, you're always sort of balancing, the noise, if you will.
Exactly.
Just so you know,
Noise.
two things. First, that mute that took place a minute ago, I don't think that was you because I didn't touch anything and I was muted for like a good 2 seconds there. I'm not sure what's going on or what happened. The other thing I was going to ask.
I didn't do it.
Okay, if you say so. You mentioned in Connecticut. Are you in or near or around Greenwich?
Yeah, actually near Greenwich. Yeah, I'm in New Canaan.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
Beautiful.
gotcha.
Beautiful,
Right.
Beautiful part of the country.
Yeah, that it is.
That is awesome. And again, the idea of wanting to do something good. There's again so many areas to go. So we're honored that you chose. I would say our community, not like it's any proprietary thing, but it's our community that that you chose to to do that generous give back. And so explain a little bit if you don't mind. I'll put the website back up on the screen. Talk a little bit about, because you've obviously then done a lot of research into autism spectrum disorder, sensory processing issues and that type of thing. How does your clothing line address these issues, and talk about that?
I think you're thinking the same thing as me, Brian. I was thinking of like if we were in Elijah's situation, let's say he hadn't gotten over a lot of the sensory issues. I'm the parent. I've been there. I know. I wouldn't begin to know, well, let's try this fabric. Let's try that fabric. How does that work? So yeah, just like, where do you start?
Yeah, a lot of the research and the starting point was really from talking to others who have experienced it or experience it every day. So really interviewing and just surveying a lot of autistic adults or anyone that wanted to share, parents sharing what they're seeing with their children, and then occupational therapists that, work with parents and children through adults on kind of addressing a lot of these issues and have that academic background. So really trying to look at it from those three perspectives and making sure that kind of coming to some sort of conclusion and at first addressing the most prevalent sensory needs. So everyone kind of has their own experiences, their own like favorite fabric or feelings that they have, but trying to find commonality at first and making sure that the first things we're offering is something that could be the most universal. And from there, would love to grow and be able to, have options for the whole spectrum.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, even those that don't have sensory issues, a tag is probably the most annoying thing in clothing, right?
Oh, totally.
Neck.
Yeah. The back between the shoulders and having. I
like
remember when
most t-shirts. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say when the first t-shirt that came out that was tagless, I was like, this is a revelation.
Yeah.
I don't think most of them have tags anymore. It's all stamped, printed on the neck. Yeah.
So I think it's slowly moving towards there, and there's definitely just like some pushback on certain styles. So like our hoodies and joggers that we have up there, the back of the fabric isn't that as smooth as a t-shirt. So they always push back and say, well, we have to put a tag in this. And I was like, well, we're not going to. So we added a patch in the back that's stitched down flat and then printed on the smooth side of the fabric. So I think it takes all these extra steps and all this education that I think these larger companies aren't really willing to take on yet or aren't willing to pay for. But when it's easier, like the t-shirt, you're seeing a lot more of it, which is great. And hopefully we can get to a point where that's just common across all styles and all fabrics.
Yeah. And I would think that the next thing is buttoning. And, I know you've got a metal magnet cloth, but that's another one, right? Just buttoning shirts. I find that even on a button down, putting that little button into the collar is such a pain in the rear end, right?
Yeah.
Is that an issue that you guys have dealt with?
Yeah, definitely. And I think looking at it, especially for children's clothing, and then we're growing into adult sizes, but from that young age, like offering those moments where they can have that independence and that confidence boost and that autonomy, and making sure it's stuff they could dress and undress themselves a lot more easily than learning how to button up and button down like 8 different buttons. It's just like such a challenge, and why fight someone over it? Like offer a better solution. So yeah, I came up with the magnetic closures so that it's easy and it's fun. So any kid, kind of what you were saying about Billy footwear, I wanted to design stuff that any kid can wear and enjoy. You don't have to have sensory needs or struggle with buttons, but it can just be fun, and then it just becomes more accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
Wow. Is
find
there
that to
any
be anyways, I just find that to be such a, again, it's a revelation. And as we get older, and Sean and I say this all the time, you may not be born into, that diagnosis that is put you in the special needs community, but as we get older and need help, we become members of the special needs community. I can still button, but I will tell you, there are times when it is really a challenge. And I know that as I get older, and I've seen older people struggle, buttoning it, is difficult. I mean, how many adults do we see that they have the buttons misaligned, for crying out loud? That still happens to folks, right? So it's a great solution.
Is there a going back to the idea, because I'm thinking of, just generally speaking, anybody that has an idea to get from point A to point B. They say that any idea or a plan, starts with, vision starts in your mind, then it's on paper, then it's before your eyes in terms of reality. Tell us a little bit about where you start doing this, because there's money, there's incorporation, all of that kind of stuff from a business standpoint. How did you get it off the ground, and what was that like?
Yeah, so I didn't decide to turn it into a business until right after I graduated college. I graduated in 2020, so everything was very shut down, and we were very unsure of how that year was going to turn out and what was going to happen at the time. So hiring was not really happening. And I really realized that even then, there wasn't a company I was dreaming of working for, or would hope they'd be hiring, because I really wanted to continue designing for this community and designing adaptive clothing, which is just not as big of an option in the job market. And so I started down the path of figuring out how to turn it into a business, which really began with just trying to find others who had done it or others who were currently going through it. And I found a group of awesome, young female entrepreneurs, all at different stages of basically just graduating and trying to start businesses up through a few years. And they were really insightful. I think the first thing I was told was, buy the website domain that you want and then incorporate so that you have your name and just go from there. So those are
ownership.
I took. Yeah. So just making sure I could, have the website to link back to. You now have a business email with that URL, and then you're officially a business once you incorporate. So then the work of actually developing all the product and all that comes after, but it really became surreal and really motivational as soon as I kind of got those formation papers that, hey, you're a business. So now you can go off and, be a business doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
Are you
go ahead, Brian?
I'm just going to ask this. Are you selling strictly off the website, or is your goal to, get into regular retail?
Yeah, ultimately would love to be in regular retail and wholesale out. Right now, it's just on our website. You can also shop right on our social media. They have now Facebook shop and Instagram shops. You can stay on one page. But right now we're on our website, which is really because I wanted to make sure everything was as affordable as possible. I feel like parents have all these other added costs already, different therapies and different tools you're trying to buy. So wanting to make sure it was affordable. And in that way, to be able to do wholesale, you need a certain margin to be able to upsell it. You sell it to the retailer who then sells it to the consumer. So kind of just waiting until we can produce more and then have those margins to do wholesale and get it out to people more where they shop. But right now the focus was on affordability.
Brilliant. Wow. The pricing is great. The pricing is incredibly reasonable. And because it is such an issue for so many parents, that is a cost worth investing in to give the child, again, some ease. And fabric choices, that type of things. I would think that, again, sensory issues, how the feel of fabrics and stuff. Is it a broad variety? Is it kind of limited? How did you decide how to do all of that?
Yeah,
because that's an issue too, right? People don't like this.
Yes. Yeah, so we had to start with a limited amount just as a small business, like one fabric for the style. And now we're branching out. So during our next kind of production run I'm working on, we'll offer it in a different fabric, because there really are people who feel differently about different fabrics. So we started out with, for our hoodies and joggers, it's called French terry. So it's like, looks like sweatshirt on the outside, but then it's not fleece on the inside. It's more flat and looped back. And that's great for temperature regulation. And, it doesn't pill, and it kind of is just like a flatter inside. And then people are kind of split on that. Some people love that and hate the fuzzy fleece. And some people, that's too rough of a texture for them. So we're then going to offer it in the fleece when we can. And the ultimate goal is for you to be able to go on and choose from a wide variety of fabrics that fit your needs. And then you can shop by style.
It is a specific, I mean, I remember this, I remember the very first time I ever put on a Donna Karan shirt. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but not DKNY, literally Donna Karan. And I became an instant fan. And again, different than DKNY, which was completely different, but Donna Karan materials were distinctly different. And I became a huge fan because I could feel the difference when I put on a Donna Karan a shirt. Primarily about shirts from her. And so I find that, again, I think that it's not just for our community. It is for everybody.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, for instance, my wife and I, my wife Laura and I are the complete opposites when it comes to sensory between hot and cold, right? She gets hot really easily. I get cold really easily. And there's certain days that, certain things that I might put on are just horrible for that given day or whatever. And you realize it like after you're out. And so the same thing, comes into play in terms of, again, that sensory. So let me ask you this. I just thought of this, when you were talking about selection of fabrics. Is there any customization involved where a person has fabrics to choose from to kind of say, or have you given thought to somebody being able to kind of, I don't know, build apparel or something like that? Like just as you choose it in various colors, can you then choose from from several fabrics that you might have to offer?
Yeah, so that's the goal for sure. I want to be able to have enough inventory where we have it in a few different fabrics, and you're able to either filter the website by the fabric you want, or on each style do it like the color. And so that's definitely something that I'm currently working towards. And as we kind of do this next launch in a new fabric, like having that as an option, and slowly as we're able to, just grow as a small business and grow to have that, be able to hold on to all that inventory. But that's been the goal from the start for sure, because I think that'd be awesome.
I'm fascinated by that. So I think that, if you have somebody who likes a particular, there's so many choices, right? You've got size, color, design, whatever. And now you've got fabric as well. But once you find somebody who a particular fabric is now their go-to, because then you can basically launch that and go direct to those customers. Yeah. And be able to say, look, you love this fabric. Now we're letting it, we're putting it out in, specific colors and whatnot. Yeah. Is that the goal?
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Goal. Yeah. I think especially once you find something you love, or you find something your kids love, you want to be able to keep buying the same thing or buy similar things, whether it be shorts that are the same material as the pants they love, or a t-shirt, so that you can kind of keep growing with them and building their wardrobe. So I definitely want to be able to hit the point where we can be consistent like that, and growing and using the same materials to help keep it the same once it's working.
Yeah.
Do you have
perfect sense?
Do your customers have an opportunity to give feedback where they may talk about things that they do and don't like, in terms of preferences and everything? Because I'm still stuck on just the idea of being able to identify what fabrics people like. So actually, I have a better question then. You mentioned that there's certain fabrics that are more popular than others, some that are less. How did you arrive at that? How did you get that data and that feedback from your customers?
Yeah, I think your questions go together well, because it's definitely just staying in communication and asking for that feedback. So whether it be reaching out, asking for reviews from people who have purchased, or on our website, you can find a link to share your story and just share your sensory experience, your sensory profile in general. Also through social media, my emails everywhere. So I really just encourage people to reach out however they are comfortable and just share that with me. And I save it all in a document and just really try to find those commonalities. And then as soon as we get fabric samples or whatever, try to compare it to comments, try to get it in the hands of customers, or when I was teaching, try them out with my classroom and see how different kids reacted. So yeah, trying to find just the most general, just from all the feedback. But as a small business, like always looking for that feedback and the reviews. And as we relaunch things, like tweaking things in the products to fit those comments that we're seeing over and over.
Something you said there really stuck out. Is that a formal thing? Out of everything you said, I was listening to everything you were saying, but I got stuck when you said sensory profile. You're talking about the other stuff. I was hearing that, but I had a mental rewind going, sensory profile. Oh my gosh, just that term alone sounds like the epitome of innovation. So do you have access, an opportunity for your customers to actually create and share what is their sensory profile?
We give them an opportunity to just share their experience. I don't have it as clinical as the sensory profile. That's something, maybe that's a term just my school used, but we called them their sensory profiles, and we create them for each child in our classroom so that if someone was subbing or a new therapist came in, you kind of understood like their likes, their dislikes, where they fell in terms of sensory seeking, sensory avoidant. So that's what we called them. But so I kind of create them in my own mind based on
use it.
Yeah.
I doubt anybody owns that. I doubt that's trademarked. If you have that on your site, what's your sensory profile? That gives you an idea. Hey, what do you like in your, and there's another form of some kind of customization that separates you from the very few people that are doing this and keeps you ahead of the race. Cause I assure you there will be one for the bigger companies and the, to eventually start to come into this market.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I love that term.
Well,
stood out to me because I just did so much. So that's good to know it resonates.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it makes sense for you to, listen, now we're giving you advice. We're giving you.
No, I love it.
But I
unsolicited.
Do think what makes it special for you is if you've developed this profile. Now you're building product based on scientific discovery. Scientific research. You're actually delivering directly to what clients are looking for, and this is going to expand. Like if you kind of kept your database of clients and listen, a lot of companies will do this when they're selling certain things. They'll talk about allergies if it's food related, or they'll keep a profile of their clients so that they know it. And then again, when you release a new line or a new fabric or new something, you've got a list of those folks you can sort by and market to. The other thing I was going to say to you is we've talked about like closures, like snaps and and zippers and that type of thing. But you also, because sensory processing is so broad, you also have a hoodie talk about that a little bit. That also provides some support for those who have sensory overload issues. And I think that's
fantastic. Yes,
because again, it expands beyond our direct, special needs community. Talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. So I really wanted to create designs that were not only just sensory friendly or fit into those realms, but added those sensory tools in to like help you stay regulated based on what they're already wearing on their body. So our hoodie has a material in the hood around the ears that helps block noise, and then an eye mask that can be pulled down. So it can either be flipped back in the hood so you don't have to wear it, or can be pulled down when you just need that full sensory break kind of wherever you are. So you don't have to leave whatever environment you're in to just have a break or calm down the input you're getting for a while. And what I love most about that hoodie is how universal it can be. I mean, I've worn the adult sample on plane rides because you have a built-in eye mask already for napping. And I think that's what's so cool about adaptive fashion and these more innovative designs is that they can benefit everyone in different ways, but are really great for kids who get sensory overload pretty easily.
A couple things you can, by the way, you can market that in any travel site, because that is huge. Built-in eye mask and noise reduction. Everybody wants that when they get on a plane. And the other thing is, oftentimes our families have a reluctance to take their children out who have sensory issues out to a restaurant. Or sometimes a public place where there's so much ambiance noise. Yeah. And so being able to have something where you can actually reduce that, man, it's such a game changer. It's so significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really where it grew from too, was just seeing that and hearing that from my students, parents, and just the community as a whole online and through these surveys is how hard it can be to go into public, even finish grocery shopping if they really can't handle that environment, having to abandon your shopping cart. And it was like, okay, in what way can we make sure that it's not another thing parents have to remember, right? You don't have to remember to carry around a weighted vest with you, headphones with you, fidgets with you. Like, how can we build these things into what a child's already wearing? And it's not this other thing that you may have forgotten at home and now the outing's ruined.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
What's really amazing is we come up with all these terms and ideas and tools and everything. And that's why I tell people, I was talking to a cousin earlier today and I was saying, telling her about the podcast. And I was saying, about 4 years ago, we thought that we were creating this podcast to shine a light on people that serve the special needs community and everything. And nothing could be more limiting than that description. Because what it really comes down to is the need to be seen and be heard. And when you talk about one sensory profile and meeting them halfway, meeting them where they are and everything, that's what the human experience is about. So if you have a business that can let people know, let a community know that they're seen and they're heard and they're mattered and that they matter, and you're asking them questions as opposed to telling them what to do,
right?
That's the epitome of separation right there.
Yeah. Where the great thing about that is that with that, some scientific background, serving a community, you aren't going to have to worry about competitors coming into the space. You're just going to be taking bids on who's going to acquire your company for the most amount of money. I mean, that's so many companies. There's so much noise. Again, it's why I asked you that first question. There's so much noise in the fashion world, right? And that having a distinct separation from what's already out there, what you're doing is phenomenal. We put it up on the screen, but for those who are catching us on podcast outlets or just auditorily, it's shopsensationalyou.com, and I'll spell it because it's I love the way you do it. It's all one word, SHOP, and then the word sense, SENSE, and then ATIONAL. So that's sensationalyou.com. Shopsensationalyou.com. Come back to the YouTube channel or to our website and look at the show notes to get to the spelling if you haven't caught this. But you also do a lot of stuff on social media, Julia. Yeah. And so I put up your Instagram, which is Sense-ational You, but sensational_you in this particular case. Do you do a lot of marketing on social media? Are you utilizing a lot? Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's definitely been our greatest driver. It's something that I created at the beginning, back when I incorporated in 2020 and just started figuring out what we were going to do, because it was the greatest way to start having those conversations and connect with people on, interviewing them in those surveys we talked about, and just listening to the community, following a lot of autistic advocates and parents of autistic children who were sharing their experiences, and just trying to immerse myself in their experiences and what they were saying. And social was the best way to do that. And I think what it was created for, create that community. And from there, it's really, as we started having product, like getting feedback on there and being able to share our designs once they were launched, and creating a great community on there has been really impactful to the brand and still our greatest driver of sales. I spend a lot of time curating new content every day and trying to stay engaged on there, because parents, are often online or seeking community in different ways, especially if they feel alone and at home with their children. So wanting to be a space where I can bring everyone together and help them connect with other people in the community and other resources.
Let me ask you something from, first of all, so are your products available only at the website, or are you available retail in brick and mortar?
Yeah, just on the website, just online.
Just the website. Okay. Let me ask you this, just, I don't know, not to get Shark Tanky, but like, what were your sales like this last year and then the year prior to that?
Yeah, so I was still teaching full time during the first full year and then part of last year. So our sales were definitely different. But yeah, our first year we launched in the end of April, and our sales were around 18,000 that year. And then 2023, they were almost at 50,000. So somewhere in there, 48.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Beautiful.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's huge.
Yeah. I have an idea for you, which we'll talk about offline.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a bunch of them coming and going. We've already
through.
been texting back and forth each other saying, oh,
I love
this
it.
idea,
That's
that
so
idea. Because
Yeah,
our whole thing is about really, and again, the definition of the show continues to be redefined. So it's about letting people know that they matter, but then it's about, is there any way to help other people succeed? And that's what you want to do, because your success is a byproduct of other people being seen and heard, and
Right.
and a product of the happiness of a lot of people. So it'd be just great to have that happen. Do you want to, or do you have a goal to at some point be available in retail outlets?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the best way to be where parents are already going, and a great chance for them to like feel and touch things and see things in person. So definitely a goal down the road for sure.
We'll talk about that. I mean, it is and it isn't. It is and it isn't, right? So at some point you have to have the capacity, to mass produce in order to get into retail. And so, but that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. I have a friend who was incredibly successful with online affiliate sales and ended up selling his business within 5 years for a significant amount of money. So, and I know you're not doing this for the money. I know you're doing this for the impact, but if you can build what you're doing, it serves our community. I know we're going to, as we expand, we just launched our site, and as we expand what we're doing on our site, we're, all the folks that have something to offer, something to sell, we're going to create pages for each one of our guests, so that people have a resource to go to for the variety of things that can offer. And so I think, we want to, but more importantly, I think the larger audience you can hit. So again, sometimes it's difficult to get into a Walmart, a Target, price point has to be a certain thing to get into those stores, and mass production. You have to guarantee production and all that stuff. So the bottom line is, how do we help you serve? Yeah, it's a ways down the road.
Exactly.
And do you have how are you manufacturing your stuff? Is it in a facility where you are now, or are you guys how are you doing it all right now?
It's actually abroad. So the first time, our first factory, I'm recently moving it, but give you background, I connected with some consultants who are fashion consultants, and they work with a lot of different brands and are able to kind of use that with different manufacturers that they've already vetted and made sure are ethical and researched a lot. And they're able to then kind of leverage all the brands they bring to them to help get kind of those smaller quantities that are harder to get abroad and try to bring them down a bit. So that's where I started. Now moving it actually over to Sri Lanka and India, where I studied at Cornell. We did a few weeks where we toured all of southern India and Sri Lanka, and I'm able to move it over there with some partnerships I made. And it's actually really cool because I reached out to them. I was like, hey, I wrote a paper on you. So I love your work and would love to figure out working with you, which has been fun and a good way. And it's all kind of driven by cost, right? So I could do it in the US, but it'd probably cost 2 times more, and really trying to keep that down for our consumer. And you're not necessarily getting a better product, or it's not necessarily any more ethical if you're doing proper vetting. So we're moving in, and we're moving it all over for, again, less tariffs, and just trying to save money to keep the prices as affordable as possible.
Sure. Well, this community is not US centric. It's global. So serving folks all over the world, definitely a goal. This is fascinating. I don't. Sean, you look like you're about to ask a question.
No, I'm good. I'm listening.
Okay, good. So and then how large of a company? How many folks do you have working for you? You're kind of brand new business. Are you?
Yeah, so it's just me full time. I have a couple consultants doing some work when I need it and on different side projects, but overall, it's me, and I'm packaging all the orders as you place them. I package them and mail them out right now. So you get a lot of hands-on with me right now.
Love that. And I think for anybody starting a business, especially a manufacturing type of business, that is an important thing for you to do. I think it is important for you to have that hands-on, so that that process, and you'll also know as you grow where you can have some economies of scale, where you can reduce your costs and shipping and packaging and all that other stuff. So good for you for doing that. I mean, that's true entrepreneurship, and we're huge fans of that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's cool to be able to, as you said, like do every job, and these jobs that you're not really taught to do otherwise. And so I have to figure them out. So now I know if I have to hire someone to do it, kind of the right way to do it. And I have some background about the task. You're not kind of hiring blindly, which I enjoy.
Beautiful. Awesome.
Yeah.
And this just, I guess lastly, ultimate goal, like if you could, couple of years from now, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, what does it look like? What does Shop Sense-ational You look like?
Yeah, the goal is definitely to be able to have, a wider variety than we even currently offer for different sensory needs. Already people ask about like chewing and socks and being able to take clothes off, like being able to hit a lot of those needs that people bring up. And then from there, allowing people to be able to shop by those needs. Like say you're trying to shop by sound reduction or sensory overload, you can filter by that and have all these styles come up so that you can then just shop by style. And I think that's what a lot of us who don't have sensory needs have the luxury of doing, being able to walk into a mall or a store, go to different stores, shop by the style of the shirt that we like the most. And really that's the goal of being able to offer kind of a wide variety and being able to say, hey, everything you're going to see now that you filtered by this, meet the sensory need you filtered for. So now just shop based on your style and your like.
And the profile, the sensory profile. That's great.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sean's a massive basketball fan. I used to be a much bigger basketball fan than I am today, but I am still fascinated by somebody who comes off the bench and, in full, practice gear, and they just rip them off, pull the pants off in one shot and, pull their jacket off in one shot. I was always a fan. I was not, in a way, that's just the greatest, right? Just tear away clothing. In a way, I think for some of our kids who, come home from school and they want to shed, that's definitely possible from there. Yeah,
what's your biggest seller, Julia? Which product? Like say
definitely
1 and 2. First,
two. Yeah, I'd say our top two are definitely the top best selling is definitely our sound reducing sensory break hoodie for sure. I think that's universally so popular. And our second one is our compression line t-shirt. So built in underneath one of our t-shirts, it looks a lot like, like a compression vest. So it's fully adjustable on both sides, but it's not this separate thing you have to like wrestle a child into. You can just pull up the top layer and tighten the two sides to the level of compression they need, loosen them when they don't need it, and they can kind of carry on and get that sensory regulation wherever they are.
Wow. What does the hoodie go for?
The hoodie is $50 for kids and $70 in adult sizes.
That's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter was telling me the other day, I had on this Old Navy hoodie, and it's maroon, and it was a gift to me on my, and I'm going to age myself, on my 40th birthday. And she goes,
like 30 or 5 or 40 years ago. Yeah,
right. So she goes, I'm 59 now. So she says, I remember that from when I've had it for like 20 years, friends gave it to me. And so and it's just an Old Navy thing. So if you take care of something like that,
right,
that's going to last, quite a bit of years, at least half a lifetime, if you care for it and for it to be, because people will pay in some cases 2, 3, 4, 5 times more for some of these high-end brands, and the only thing that's high end is the name and the association, not the product. In fact,
I keep thinking this. It's such a great thing for traveling. Again, I think that is brilliant. I think that's absolutely amazing. The one thing that we talk about every week on this show is that how fast our hour seems to fly by. And again, we had a little bit of stuff at the beginning of this, but is there anything that you would like to add or throw in there, or something we haven't asked you yet before we, start targeting towards our wrap up? We have a question to ask you too, but is there anything that we haven't covered?
I guess the main thing that I always love sharing with people when they ask is how much adaptive clothing and these adaptive tools really can start a conversation, even if your kids are not neurodivergent or don't have a specific sensory processing need, and how I said they can be universal and just enjoyed, but how they can also really start that conversation about like why someone might need magnetic closures or why they specifically need no tags. And at a very like age appropriate level, start beginning to have those conversations about their peers and inclusion and understanding people's needs differently. And I think seeing that from a teacher's perspective too, like seeing when we'd, meet as a whole school and seeing kind of the general education classes that would really feel unsure and, didn't know what was going on with our kids or would just like hesitate away from that. And I think the earlier you can have those conversations so it's not unknown and it creates more inclusion, the better. And that's what I love that fashion can do too, is kind of be a spark to start that conversation.
For sure. For sure. Amazing.
Definitely.
Amazing. Julia, this is we are literally, we're going to spend, if you're okay, spend a few minutes after this episode ends talking with you offline here, because we've got like tons of notes to share.
Amazing.
So this is a point in the show. I'm going to hand it off to Sean to ask you the question we ask everybody at the end of every episode. Take it away, Mr. Francis.
This is the portion of the show where we'll ask the following question. Our ability to change the world in some way, great or small, is based on our ability and or our willingness to change ourselves. So give us just one example of a thought or a belief that you once believed strongly, but now no longer believe to be true.
That's a good one. Yeah, I definitely struggled a lot with kind of self-confidence in general and really believing that I could do something I set my mind to and actually truly accomplish something different and go against the grain. And obviously now creating a whole company, it sounds kind of silly, but even in high school, I was like afraid to tell my parents that I wanted to study fashion design because it's so unique and, our family is so academically focused. And that was such a hard thing to mentally overcome at every step. And even when I got into a fashion design program, really believing that I deserved to be there and could actually finish the degree and do it well. So kind of overcoming that mental hurdle and that belief that I just couldn't do something that was hard or different, definitely took a lot of years to work through.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Sensational You, shop sensationalyou.com or on Instagram at sensational_you.com. Check this out, folks. If you or your children or anybody in your family have any sensory issues around clothing, I think this is going to be something very, very significant. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll talk to you because, again, I think there's an opportunity with you and Billy Footwear. And so I'm going to thank Billy Footwear for always, being fans and supporters of our podcast. Go to billyfootwear.com. It'll be in the show notes. Sean to put the link in the show notes to go and click on the link to get a 10% discount off any of the sales of Billy Footwear. Thank you, Sean Hall out in Hawaii, for always taking good care of us. You'll be able to share some stuff on your social media, Julia, in just a little bit. That's thanks to Sean Hall. If you've caught us on your on podcast outlets or down at WSTX AM radio in the U.S. Virgin Islands, thank you for listening to us today. If you catch us after the fact and you want to share notes, go to our YouTube channel or our webpage, justyourdadspodcast.com. Leave us a note, subscribe, share with your friends. This is a perfect example of something that somebody who has a family member that's got some sensory issues. This is the kind of product that will make a huge benefit to them. Also, Father's Day coming up. Get your dad, if he's a traveler, get your dad a hoodie so they can put that built-in sleep mask and noise reduction. That's as a dad, that's a huge thing. I get it. So thank you for being here. And as I always say at the end of every show, empathy and love. So important. Empathy. Now, if you see somebody, you don't know what their situation is, have some empathy. Don't be judgmental. Ask questions. And if you look at the world through the lenses of love, the world's just a much better place. Mr. Francis, send it over to you.
Yes. I want to, something we had not talked about. I want to encourage everyone to, if you get a chance, go see the film Ezra. It is a fantastic movie about a a boy on the autism spectrum. His parents are separated, and any and every, I shouldn't say any and every trial that you can think of. It's just another example of being seen and being heard. That is the key to any and everything. Included in the show notes will also be the application form or the registration form for our men's group, the Den, which is a support group for males and dads who are caregivers to those who are neurodivergent. They have a diagnosis, whatever the case may be. Well, also want to, thank everyone within the sound of my voice. We have some great things coming up that we're really looking forward to that we're going to be sharing with you. I want to thank Julia for her time today. I'm excited because you often get this feeling like this show is the genesis of other things that we're going to be doing in the future together, which is both mine and Brian's sincere hope, because that was discovered here today in this conversation. So thank you so very much. And for those of you that have taken the time to support us, thank you. We appreciate you. Remember that questions are more powerful than statements. Let's try and be a little more childlike and less childish, and wherever you may be. And again, thank you to Sean Hall. To each and everyone, we love you.
We love you. See you all next week. Julia, thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.